Hi, Ellen. Welcome to Venture Grace. We're live.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
To start the show, I would love to for the audience to get to know you a little bit more. So you have worked at investment banking and you worked in venture and now you're a partner at PayPal Ventures. Why don't we start with like what were some core lessons that you've learned early on in your career that kind of shape you into who you are today?
Uh, yeah, that's a hard question, but I would say core lessons. You know, I honestly, my career path hasn't been super linear. It's been, I would say, for lack of a better phrase, all over the place.
Mhm.
I got my start in technology investment banking. Not because I wanted to do it, not because the usual reasons people say, "Oh yeah, I want to work with smart people." I really didn't know what I wanted to do, and I just
Mhm.
heard about this thing called investment banking at the time, and you could make what seemed to a fresh college kid, college
Mhm.
grad, an obscene amount of money,
Mhm.
and it just seemed like, okay, why not? Because at the time I was hoping to um, uh, get into law school and become a lawyer at some point.
Mhm.
And then, it just seemed like there's really not a perfect job for you to
Mhm.
do to prep you for law school. So I figured, all
Mhm.
right, why not? If I'm going to just pick anything, why not at least make some money while doing it?
Mhm.
So that's kind of how I got my start. I would say though, once I did start doing it, it really became clear to me that uh, it's something quite special in that I got the chance to work with some of the smartest tech entrepreneurs at the time, and this was 2010, 2011.
Mhm.
Around the time, there was kind of, Uber was emerging quickly as a super new innovative company that was changing how people were traveling, right? I mean, I was living in San Francisco at the time. I remember how difficult it was to call the 415-333-333 number to get a cab
Mhm.
and wait for
Mhm.
half an hour for this yellow cab, which may or may not show up, right?
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden, I heard about this thing that you can just literally press a button on your phone, and then nice at the time they're all using these Blacktown cars, which were absolutely just amazing, right? They would just show up, and it's nice and clean, and it take you anywhere, right? And you don't have to deal with any of the payment stuff. It's all handled sort of through the phone. So that's when something clicked, and I decided that, this is kind of uh, serendipitous in the sense that I kind of stumbled upon this thing, and I decided that,
Mhm.
what, this is the area I want to work in. And
Mhm.
fast forward a couple years, I got recruited by Revolution Growth.
Mhm.
Many may not be familiar with that name. So Revolution, as a platform, was started by this gentleman named Steve Case, who was the founder and CEO of AOL. And
Mhm.
for the younger audiences, AOL was the company that used to send out these, like, these CDs in the mail, right? You would get 100 of these things, and I remember in college people were decorating their walls with it. But anyways, so he started this thing called Revolution that was investing across both sort of the core consumer e-commerce, and as well as technology-enabled services and enterprise SaaS categories. And I was pretty lucky to be kind of one of the first that got recruited to work on that platform on the growth side. And during that process, really invested in a cohort of companies that were some of the early innovators across both e-commerce and as well as consumer companies. So that's really kind of got how I cut my teeth doing investments, and during that time got my MBA, and decided that venture is really what I want to do. So immediately after I finished grad school, I immediately came back to venture and got recruited by PayPal, where I now focus on investments across AI infrastructure, call it data, call it security, the what I call the really boring geeky stuff, but I really get a kick out of it. So that's really kind of the journey. And I'll say if there's one core lesson out of all of that, is just like try a bunch of things. You never really know what you're gonna kind of stumble upon. and realize all of a sudden, oh, this is what I've been looking for all along. So really, like when you're young, right, in your early 20s, you're fresh out of school, like just try different things and be super open-minded about it. You never know what you discover.
For sure. I wonder, since like, you joined the PayPal venture team since like 5 years ago, and then you have invested in some really great companies. I wonder maybe we could start with your journey on like or like starting with like what is like PayPal venture focused on? Like so obviously you have invested in some of the I guess like AI tools to help with like productivity slash like I guess commerce enablement, as well as there's some security companies. And then maybe we could start with like, generally like how is PayPal Ventures associated with PayPal itself, and like what are some general things that you guys are investing in, and check size, and like the basic
Yeah,
things about the VC fund.
sure. So, as the name suggests, we're part of PayPal.
Mhm,
We invest, off balance sheet, like most CVCs. And the core thesis is really quite simple. We invest anything that kind of touches money transaction,
mhm,
money movement.
mhm,
So, be it the core FinTech infra, right, payment tech, uh, from that to say like cybersecurity, which helps protect the money movement.
mhm,
Those are all sort of within the broader scope of our mandate. Now, the typical check size. So we tend to focus on. Sorry about that. There's neighbors alarm going off. 1 second.
oh no.
Yeah, sorry.
uh Quickly saying hi to the audience. Hi, Rory.
Yeah.
I just
So
want
sorry about that. The it's actually my son playing
oh
with
my
the car
god,
as it
no.
turns out. Yeah. So the um, um, the check sizes can range, I would say, from on the low end, mid single digit $1 million, call it five or so, to upwards of 10 to 15. I would say 5 to 10 is probably the sweet spot. And in the past, we have done both leads, co-leads. We've also been a really good follower as well. Partnering with other top tier venture funds as well. I would say we like to get in early
Mhm,
because for us as a CVC, as a strategic, with all of our amazing resources that are the broader PayPal org, where we have all these amazing engineers and technical leaders, product leaders, we can really be impactful early on to
mhm,
the founders, right? Particularly if you're building something for the enterprise and you want to get an early feedback on the product, right? See what kind of feature requests you may potentially get from your future customers. We're actually a great place to go to, right? And as a matter of fact, a lot of the top tier, financial investors, they will talk about, oh, we'll get you in front of all the enterprise leaders, right? I mean, it's us, right? Well, not us, right? It's the PayPal leaders, right? So like we have an even more direct connectivity with those folks. That's why we like to be early and we
mhm.
like to be impactful.
For sure.
Yeah.
For like the 5 to 10 million investment, like, do you guys primarily, I guess, like, what is the ownership target? And then like what kind of stage do you typically want it to enter? Like assuming like seed or like
Yeah, I would
you guys
say
do A? Yeah.
Yeah, I would say Series A and Series B is probably the sweet spot.
Mhm,
Obviously, we're not religious about the stage, right? If there's something that's
mhm,
super, super exciting and super, super strategic, we will make exceptions.
mhm,
And I would say ownership stake, we're also not religious about ownership stake. Now, obviously,
mhm,
we still like to tell folks that one, we want to be important enough for you, to
mhm,
you, and we want you to be important enough to us, right? So
mhm,
generally, we try to get a meaningful enough stake. Now, could
mhm.
it be 5%, could be 10%, could be anything in between.
For sure.
Yeah,
I wonder, so like from I guess like maybe we could start with like some of your portfolio so people get a sense of like the things that you guys are interested in.
yeah,
So you have invested in a company called Rasa, which is a enterprise grade conversational AI platform
yep,
to basically virtual assistant for like complex workflows. Why don't we start with like, first of all, like how do you kind of encounter the company and then how did you kind of diligence it? Since
yeah,
like right now, like I feel like in the past week I have seen like, over 30 different like, AI assistant to replace your chief of staff or to like help with the workflow. But how do you kind of like um like I guess like diligence if like one of the companies will turn into something huge?
yeah. So it's actually one of my favorite ones. We
Mhm,
absolutely love Rasa, and Melissa and team there have just done an amazing job scaling the
mhm,
company. So we ran across Rasa early in the days where we're looking at these core conversational AI platforms. We looked at a number of these companies that are, I would say, they kind of fall into a few categories.
mhm,
One's there's these kind of these I hate to call them dinosaurs, but with all due respect, they're kind of like old technology, right? Like the nuance of the world, right? So these are sort of the traditional decision tree based, right? You kind of map out all the intents, and think of them as almost like whatever you call into, like say United Airlines, right? Maybe they don't do that
mhm,
anymore, but you call and say press one for this, press two for that. Like that's kind
mhm,
of like the classic decision tree based approach, right? It's very it's deterministic. It's very safe, right? Because you have essentially like a preset of answers, right? So the AI will never go off the rails. Now, on the other end, there are these sort of pure LLM native, right? Just kind of build a conversational agent and kind of let it run type of approach. Those are the ones where you see these weird things happen. Where I think early days there's like a Chevrolet dealership that released one of their chat agent. People started really just messing with it, and it got it to do some pretty funny and ridiculous things. And at one point, I believe one of the major airlines actually got in trouble, legal trouble, because their LLM, the conversational agent, started hallucinating and it started essentially saying things that are not true, and they ended up in a lawsuit, which the airline actually ended up losing.
mhm,
So we kind of looked at these different categories of or different approaches, right? And I said, well, generally for the larger enterprises, right, which tend to be very conservative, risk averse, right?
mhm,
Particularly when they deal with customer information or dealing with directly with their customers, right?
mhm,
They are very paranoid about whether it's safe, right? Whether the answers given are results of hallucination or actual, machine intelligence. So,
mhm,
we want to find something that can offer both the safety, right, and reliability that comes from these like the more deterministic type of approaches, but also the user friendliness that come from the more LLM native approaches, right?
mhm,
Rasa actually happen to offer sort of the best of both worlds in
mhm,
that what they do is that they couple, right, the
mhm,
traditional NLP based type of approach with the LLM native approach, right? So that, for example, you can kind of use both tools to the best advantage, right? So, for example, when you're ingesting a user request, right? When you're ingesting things, you can actually leverage the LLM to better understand what the user is trying to ask for, right? So
mhm,
that's really improving the overall user experience, right? So I don't feel like I'm talking to a wall, right? Like
mhm,
I'm trying to do this, it's sort of an edge case. If it's not pre-programmed within the decision tree, I'm just going to keep getting the same, the 5 menus, right? Like it's a
mhm,
really frustrating thing, right? However, chances are I've mapped out the answers to some of these cases already, right? So once I kind of ingest the user request, I can then kind of map it out to, okay, like these are the cases that I've already planned for. So I can give out the deterministic answers, right, without the machine hallucinating or without giving the machine even a chance to hallucinate. So you kind of combine best of both
mhm,
worlds to be able to actually provide a much more slick customer experience
mhm,
while still delivering the reliability that the larger enterprises, particularly if you're working with, say, financial services, right, that these guys care so much about, which is why we're actually really quite excited about Rasa and what they're building.
For sure. I wonder, how do you, I guess, like since like we briefly chat about like, PayPal venture or like the PayPal team maybe actually helping with the diligence process. I wonder at the beginning, like, how do you kind of like diligence this type of stuff? So like, do you talk to the internal team to be like, hey, do you think we will ever like use this or like deploy this into our system? Or how, I guess, like how do you leverage the ecosystem to like actually like diligence
Yeah,
the
yeah,
company?
absolutely. We talk to everybody. We talk to the, obviously we talk to the companies themselves, right? We
Mhm,
don't just go talk to the CEO, the
mhm,
C titles, right? We actually go down to the VP levels, right? We'll ask them things that are very technical. We'll ask them, about the culture. We'll ask them about their hiring pipeline and things like that.
mhm,
But we'll also go talk to their partners. We'll talk to the customers, existing
mhm,
customers, or customers who have churned, or customers who are
mhm,
considering different options. And we'll obviously talk to our internal teams, right? Because we could potentially
mhm,
be a large customer, right?
mhm,
And chances are we probably tinker with their open source version in the past, and compare different options ourselves, right? So I think
mhm,
all of those are great venues to get a bit more visibility into how this product may or may not work, or may or may not scale
mhm,
once deployed within a large enterprise. Now, it just so happened that when we looked at Rasa, they
mhm,
already had some amazing Fortune 500 logos, right? Which
mhm,
usually helps, right? To be able to
mhm,
see very prominent names that are oftentimes on TV, right? And paying them a lot of money to use their this enterprise solutions across not just a single use case but multiple use cases, right?
mhm.
Across both external facing solutions and also internal facing solutions. Those are great validations for the tech.
I wonder, so like you also invested in a company called R1 and which is like
Mhm.
already acquired. I feel like any generative AI video companies is like a lot of them are like very popular these days. Like at the
Yep.
beginning, there was like a Sensasia that's like kind of
Yep.
doing like a similar-ish thing. And then now there's a HeyGen, there's like,
Yep.
500 other, video um or like Modimoto, like AI
Yep.
generated video companies. And I wonder, so like maybe if you could give us like some sort of like benchmark that you were using to like see similar to like the previous question, but like I guess like in this space, it's like a really popular space. How do you see which company actually have what it takes to, be acquired by a Wix or like, to actually have an exit opportunity?
I would say, at a high level, a lot of times you kind of have to look at who they're trying to sell to, right?
Hmm.
I think our one had a slightly different go-to-market strategy compared to the HeyGens and Seizures of the
Hmm.
world, which tend to focus more on I would say the prosumers, right?
Hmm.
Uh, and their thesis at the time was we want to sell to the enterprise users that just wanted more control over the
Hmm.
production process, right? So, for example, if you're using again purely generative type of approach, you could essentially end up with a different video each time, right?
Hmm.
And or if you're focusing on say the what we call the learning development use case that some of these other competitors were focusing on, right? That we're selling to the enterprise, uh,
Hmm.
they can only do very, I would say, like say HR type of training videos that were very static, right? So and I think our one stood out to us because one, they offered the really high degree of controllability, so
Hmm.
that you can only like you can actually change bits and pieces of the
Hmm.
video, right, without redoing the entire thing. And also I think there were features that were uh, differentiated in that it offers far more depth, right? So the sort of the background as you were like say producing a virtual like an avatar, right? The background videos of people walking around, those seemed to us that were it just felt the tech at the time was far more superior.
Mhm.
Look, at the end of the day, we're still in the super early innings for this. It's really really hard to look at these and say, oh, like this is going to get acquired by X,
Mhm.
by Y, right? Because a lot of these larger hyperscalers build their own video models, right,
True.
or
Yeah.
tools internally, right? So it's always difficult to say, oh, this one's going to definitely get acquired by so or so.
Mhm.
I think the more important question to ask is one: do you believe in the tech, right? Do you feel like
Mhm.
there's a moat? Do you believe there's something different that they're doing in terms of go to market? Do you feel like they're sort of the unit economics early on makes sense that can allow them to be a standalone company, right?
Mhm.
And do you feel like the team can deliver, right, from a product velocity standpoint, can continue to deliver and innovate, right? Because a lot of times, as these tools become more and more available and more advanced, right, this kind of quote unquote technical moat becomes a very fluid thing, and it's really hard to maintain that moat. Even if you have one, it's really hard to maintain that over an extended period of time. So you
Mhm.
just got to keep moving, right? I've heard another great early stage VC tell me the other day, the only moat you have is your speed, right?
Mhm.
Just moving so they can't catch up to you.
Mhm.
Like that's actually an amazing point, right? So I think for the ones that are looking at these companies, whether it's from an investment standpoint or partnership standpoint, right, it's really important to kind of focus on their product velocity. Can they continue to deliver things?
For sure.
Yeah.
I wonder, so like when you are, so for example, when you're encountering these companies, I'm sure like there's a lot of like the sourcing mechanism that you could be using. Like, so some of them maybe like people just approach you, or like
Yeah.
some tier one VC just like send you like a company that are like, hey, do you want to like kind of like diligence this through PayPal? Like, I
Yeah.
guess what do you identify as like the most high quality deal sourcing funnel? Like, let's say if a founder
Yeah.
find you at like a dinner, or like should it be like always warm intro, but like you can't just get warm intro for everything, or even the warm
Yeah.
intro, there's like 400 of them that like how do you kind of like funnel
Yeah.
the best ones into your pipeline?
Yeah, that's I think the key question, right? As an early stage VC, you just got to be scrappy. You got to get
Mhm.
your deal sources from everywhere. And I would say, obviously, a lot of funds who are very friendly with us do send us things,
Mhm.
uh, and we do our own sort of industry mapping. But I would
Mhm.
say you just got to be proactive and be out there and not just go to the sort of the big name conferences and try to meet companies there because everybody is there, right? The
Mhm.
investors, your quote unquote competitors, right, are there as well. So you really got to go places that are not as well attended, right? Go to developer meetups, right? Go to even like trade shows, right? So
Mhm.
uh, go to these. We also host a bunch of events, right? We've done
Mhm.
quite a few, both in New York, and obviously here in the Bay Area, and also in Europe. So there are all these different things you absolutely have to hit, and that sort of that community building, right? That ecosystem development work is absolutely crucial, right?
Mhm.
And once you kind of get your names out there, and once you start working with these founders, and you begin to show that one, you are really helpful as an investor, and you're really insightful, right? You're able to offer all the things that other VCs may or may not be able to offer. They start referring their friends, right? Like great founders tend to kind of congregate, like they tend to hang out with one another, right?
Mhm.
And they'll refer their friends or refer, they'll hear a lot of things, right?
Mhm.
Because they're always talking to one another. And founders also do diligence, do kind of background checks on the VCs as well, right? So
Mhm.
I think having a reputation as sort of a helpful, a great investor usually actually goes a long way. And so I think all those things are areas that we pay a lot of attention to, right, from a deal sourcing perspective.
I wonder, so in terms of like, um, since like you mentioned about like developer conference and like some of these like other, I guess like more niche stuff that you go to, like what would can you name like any one conference you actually find really interesting that probably like most people don't know?
Let's see. Like we go to hackathons a lot, uh,
Mhm.
right? So there have been some great like mini hackathons that, like for example, our portfolio companies will host one day or co-host with another group, or they're like
Mhm.
organization like the AGI House, right?
Mhm.
I know there are two of them, so I won't specify which one. But
Mhm.
they'll put up like they'll put on really great events where they'll host hackathons around. I think I went to one
Oh, I
recently around.
have a question about the
Yeah,
hackathon sourcing mechanism,
yeah,
just because like I've been to a few ones,
yeah,
and I feel like the problem is like it's a bit too early stage. Like, so
yeah,
some of people's ideas are like, very, I guess like meme driven. So like it's like when you go there, like there's I feel like the winners are always like the best like presentation guys instead of like actually someone who with like deeper technology expertise. And I also tend to feel like they're a little bit too early stage to invest in because some of
yeah,
them are like, Loki, I just met you at this hackathon and like we're sitting together for the past 4 hours and now we're
yeah,
presenting, I don't know, this like voice AI like deal negotiator, right? So
yeah.
like I wonder, so how do you filter out like what are some stuff that you would like actually um stay in touch with, or like if they're too early, like what is some way to like maybe put it in like a CRM, or like how do you kind of like track the progress of the company before it's like kind of investable?
Yeah, I would say, that statement, if you were to ask me, say, a year and a half or 2 years ago, I will
Mhm,
fully agree that these hackathons or demo days, right, tend to lean so early that they're not investable, at least for our investment scope, for
mhm,
like a good amount of time. However, I think things really changed in the
mhm,
last year and a half or so. I was talking to another good VC friend who said in the last 6 months alone, he has met more companies that have achieved multi-million dollar ARs with like single digit headcount within the last year of
mhm,
launching, right? Then all of these companies these types of company combined in like the last few years, right? That he's met with. So the velocity with which that these companies can scale and how little they can do, they need, right, from
mhm,
both a capital standpoint or headcount standpoint to be able to get to that scale
mhm,
is something that we've not witnessed before, right?
mhm,
So I think if you felt that those things were too early before, that's probably no longer the case, right? And I myself would agree with that friend's assessment in that I've started to start to notice that there's so many companies that I met with 8 or 9 12-ish people with multi-million dollar ARRs, winning contract left and right. And because they're able to automate so much of the development itself, that they're able to just get to a size that used to require a lot more capital, a lot more time, and a lot more people. Right. So
um,
now I feel like
mhm,
those places are actually great hunting grounds because
mhm,
you got to meet them early now.
mhm. For sure, I totally agree with you. I wonder, so I wonder, there's like two things I'm curious about your thoughts. So yesterday we have the CEO of like Polona AI on our show. She was a former CTO of Tinder, VP of Google, Instagram, LinkedIn, and stuff like that. So basically she was saying like they were taking a long time to build the product because they really wanted to fundamentally build like a really good infrastructure before they went really hard on like go to market stuff.
Yeah.
But it's like very different than like build like launch and launch like a scrappy product like MVP and like just like I guess like edit the product like along the way.
Yeah.
But I feel like the hackathon products are like me myself, I went to a hackathon, I built my own like lovable product, right? So like, I mean, is this like actually scalable? Like, I mean, I heard about like amazing stories, right? Like people
Yeah.
just built something unlovable and it makes like, $1 million. but
Yeah,
I feel like the problem is like, is it like infrastructure actually like scalable, or like how do people actually um, think about these things? And do you agree with like you should like spend just like, I don't know, like a weekend to build something and then see if it can monetize first, to test the market? Or like should you actually go from like, the infrastructure, make sure that this thing is like have
yeah,
potential to like scale? Is that like making a huge difference, or like you feel like it's going to be justified by like the AI improvement in the future, that like,
yeah.
all these are like not matter?
I would say, look, at the end of the day, you that's very much determined by who you're looking to sell to, right?
Mhm.
For example, if you're like a vibe coding company, which there are now a few quite
Mhm.
successful ones, and you're selling to the grassroots, sort of this with this bottom up type of go to market, then it's absolutely crucial to keep launching, keep shipping, right? Ship or die, right?
Mhm.
And these coders, these developers have very little loyalty, right? They're going to use
Mhm.
whatever's the most friendly, the easiest, the latest, most innovative, tool there
Mhm.
is, right? However, if you're looking to sell to a Fortune 500, say, bank, then it may or may not be the right type of go-to-market approach, right? You better be ready to come with a platform, right, or
Mhm.
something with a platform potential rather than just a single feature that's
Mhm.
gonna keep iterating in the wild, right? So I think it really is determined by who you're looking to sell to, right? Both can yield multi-billion-dollar companies, super successful companies, but you just need to be clear on who the customers are. Now, I would say the important thing about ship and iterate model is that it allows you to collect user feedback, which is absolutely crucial, right? Like if you just like hide in your office, in your garage, and keep trying to build the most perfect thing, and you come to market with it 10 years later or like two
Mhm.
years later, right? Right, like you may lose valuable time and valuable feedback channels that your competitors are getting, right? Your competitors may come to the market with something a little bit less efficient, user friendly, but guess what? They're out there getting mind share, right? Getting their names out there, and they're probably raising more money than you, right? So
Mhm.
they beat you to market with a say an inferior product, but allows them to gain the publicity, gain the capital, right,
Mhm.
and continue to iterate and collect, say, feature requests, right, collect
Mhm.
on market intelligence on, okay, here are the other use cases that we haven't thought of, right, here are the additional features that we absolutely need to in order to sell
Mhm.
to additional customers, right.
Mhm.
Those are the things that you risk losing, right,
Mhm.
if you continue to just kind of want to build the most perfect thing and then go to market with it.
For sure.
Yeah.
I wonder, so like since you also invest in a lot of like security companies, like Deep Instinct and data privacy like mine. So like I wonder, from the security perspective, like since PayPal is like famous for like being a secure payment platform, what do you think are like the investing trends there? Like, is there something that like, what can you build in-house? And then what are something that you feel like will be complementary to like the PayPal services?
Yeah, I won't comment on sort of specifically what
Oh,
PayPal
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sorry about
built in
that. Yeah.
house or and what we kind of our vendors, for example. I will say at a very high level, like security is a perpetual theme, right? It
Mhm,
doesn't matter how quickly and that sort of the AI landscape is changing, how
mhm,
we build our software, right? The security and safety of people's money, of their information, is always going to be a key
mhm,
focus, right? And that is true
mhm,
not just for PayPal, but across all institutions that handle any sort of customer information or any sort of
mhm,
valuable
mhm.
resources, right? So which is why security is absolute, key focus area for
Mhm.
us. As more companies are beginning to adopt, whether it's automated coding tools or conversational agents and what
Mhm.
have you, there are areas that are existing sort of security tools and features may or may not be able to cover, right?
Mhm.
So I remember about a year ago, model security, LLM guardrails, right? Those were kind of like super hot areas that people are paying attention to, and that category has yielded quite a few interesting companies, right?
Mhm.
So I think that's an area we'll continue to look to invest in for the future. But even beyond that, right? I think for example, there have been cases of deep fakes, right? That's been
Mhm.
talked about for years now. How do you detect that?
Mhm.
And there are existing tools that do liveness checks, right? But those
Mhm.
can easily be faked, right? With the generative AI video companies,
Mhm.
tools that we some of which we've touched on, right?
Mhm.
So how do you continue to build in to make your MFA process more robust, to make your authentication process more robust, right? So
Mhm.
that's another area, and I don't know there's a uh, at least I haven't come across, and for anybody who happens to be watching, like if you have a great deep fake detection company, please come talk to me.
Oh, I have so many questions on the deepfake detection companies. Like I feel like I've seen a lot of these like deep detection companies, but
Yeah,
like from my like past like interviews with other people or like just chatting with like security AI experts. So it seems like the security sector always you have to just like really pay attention to the Israel like military folks or just like people who have like deep domain expertise. Like it's almost like so for example, the company that, Deep Instinct you guys invested in that like was like started by like someone from who was like the president of Palo Alto Networks, right? So like it's typically always someone who is like super experienced, but like if you only invest in super experienced people, like how do the new people get experience? Like, and I wonder, like, is there something that like what would be like the top three benchmark that you can like quickly judge if something have legs? Because like I feel like I've seen a lot of founders that they're like, oh, we have design partner like
yeah,
XYZ Bank. But
yeah,
I feel like the to actually enter XYZ Bank, you really need um a lot of like just like a long time because
yeah,
I think the sales process will be so long to sell to a bank because you have to like prove that you don't have like crazy security reason for them to like trust you and like there's like a bunch of stuff. So how do you think about the diligence process for these like deepfake identification companies and then what should the business model be or like what kind of business model that you've seen that actually works?
yeah. I would say, well, for one, Deep Instinct wasn't started by the former president of Palo Alto Networks. The current CEO, Lane Bass, was the CEO, former CEO of Palo Alto Networks, and he also, I think, was the president of Zscaler. But the company was actually started by a gentleman by the name of Guy Caspi, who was a very prominent member of the, former member of the Israeli intelligence 8200
Yeah,
units.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah. So
8200.
yeah,
Yeah.
so they're amazing folks who are on the very front line of
Mhm,
of cyber security, right? Cyber defense,
mhm,
and we spend a lot of time speaking with Israeli founders who are absolutely amazing founders. We've really enjoyed working with a lot of them, and I would say, particularly around how do you determine whether something has quote unquote legs.
mhm,
Early design partnerships obviously super
mhm,
important, right? Because it's not that easy to do a design partnership with a large tech company or a large existing sort of whether it's like the PayPal's of the world or like a Toyota of the
mhm.
world, right? So that's an important validation point for just how important what you're building might be, right?
Um,
And
do they have to pay for like during the design partnerships or like is this just gonna be like, oh, we partner with like a branch of I don't know PNC
um,
Bank?
yeah, so I mean, it's probably different by each company.
Mhm.
I would say I've seen a lot of what's called NREs, right? Like the non-recurring engineering type of partnerships.
Mhm.
Yeah, they get paid, right? You are using the startup's resources, right, and their time, which are often constrained, right, because they're a startup,
Mhm.
right? And if they're spending and devoting a huge chunk of their time and resources toward building this product in partnership with you, yeah, I think it's probably fair to say that you should pay for some of that, right? As a
Mhm.
large company who's going to benefit from this product that you're experimenting with. So yeah, I would say oftentimes there's payment involved. Now it could be small, could be large, could be over like multi-years, could be a sort of a single payment. Uh, but obviously, design partnerships don't always yield sort of lead to a massive commercial contract, right? Some
Mhm.
which might not work out. But generally we look at those as strong valid points of validation for the tech early
Mhm.
on, right? Particularly when you're looking at super early stage companies when they don't have much else for you to diligence, right? They don't have a
Mhm.
huge customer pipeline. They're still kind of in the design phase. They're still kind of in the R&D phase, right? So it's important to kind of focus on those things versus, well, what are your CAC payback
Mhm.
periods, right? Because they don't have any. I would say, going back to your question around deepfake, what's been the model that works well? I don't know. Because I haven't seen that many that have reached a huge sort of scale. Maybe just because I haven't been looking hard enough. But I would say generally large enterprises don't tend to buy features. They tend to want to buy platforms, right? So if
Mhm.
you're a company focusing on, say, a single detection method, whether it's deepfake or some type of specific type of fraud, it's
Mhm.
probably better to look at one beyond your direct sales strategy, but also looking at channel partnerships, right?
Mhm.
Those tend to be super important, right? And that's been, I think, a great strategy for a lot of cybersecurity companies, right? These working with these managed security service providers and going through them, right, is a great strategy to get in front of a large number of customers while without having to devote a ton of, say, direct sales effort,
Mhm.
and it can help you get to a scale, right? Get to a certain
Mhm.
scale.
I wonder, so I wanna touch on 2 companies that you have invested in. One
Yep.
is called, like, Skipify, which is like an instant checkout platform. Like, I feel like there's at one period of time, like, the instant checkout become, a very popular thing, and then even, like, I feel like, um, in this sector, I don't know if you consider, like, Kudos as, like, a, competitor for Skipify. So, like, I guess, like, how do you kind of, like, again, like, first of all, like, what's your outlook on these, like, fast checkout platforms? And then number 2, it's like, what are something that you would, like, diligence on? Is that, like, maybe, which logo do they have at that
Yeah.
point? Or, how do you kind of, like, diligence? Because I feel like there's so many companies that are, like, adjacently similar to each other in this
Yeah.
space, but you kind of, like, hard to tell, like, which one have, the longevity in the industry.
Yeah, I won't comment on the other names that were in this space,
Mhm.
but I would focus on what attracted us to Skipify, which is an absolutely great company. Rith is a dear friend, and he's been doing great work.
Mhm.
And I would say what attracted us to Rith early on was, one, we don't tend to look at this as a one-click checkout story. I think
Mhm.
at the end of the day, it's commerce identity,
Mhm.
because you know we used to shop on desktop, right? And before that, we shopped in store, right? Your
Mhm.
identity was represented by a single piece of plastic with a
Mhm.
magnetic strip on it, right? And then it changed into a login, right? An email, and plus
Mhm.
your password. Now people are doing more and more, shopping on their phones, right? And now people are beginning to talk about agentic shopping, right? So like
Mhm.
all of that uh, still doesn't matter how you shop, where you shop, how many clicks, right? At the end of the day, you still have to authenticate the user, him or herself, right? Because at the end of the day, when money is moved, when money is touched, you absolutely have to make sure that that person who's looking to purchase a $200 dress online is actually who they say they are, right?
Hmm.
Now, so that's why we like early on when we met Riff said, look, I don't want to look at myself as a one-click checkout company. I'm really a
Hmm.
commerce identity company. That's I think something that was quite different at the time from
Hmm.
the other pitches we've heard. And too early on, he was able to, I would say, really work closely with a lot of large financial institutions. And instead of, I would say, going direct and try to win the consumers over or win the merchants over, I think when you're a checkout platform, right, it's kind of a two-sided
Hmm.
two-sided battle, right? You go to the consumers and say, hey, like enroll your identity with us, right? So we can help you check out faster. Though consumers will say, okay, cool, like what kind of merchants are you integrated with, right? Where
Hmm.
can I do these like seamless checkouts? You say, well, hold on, like just enroll with us first and we'll go get the merchants for you. And then on the flip side is you go to the merchants first and say, hey, please enroll with us, right? So we can like bring you more shoppers. They're like, okay, where are the shoppers, right? But hold on, like we're gonna go get the shoppers too, right? And I think early on, Skipify had this very smart idea. So, okay, we don't want to fight that sort of battle, the chicken and the egg problem. So we go directly to the large banks, right? And these are all
Hmm.
public information as well, so you can like look it up. The announcement they've done with some of the largest banks there are the card issuers, right? So they're saying, okay, we'll work with the card issuers and essentially achieve that critical mass early on in terms of being able to manage a large enough corpus of identities so that we can go directly to the merchants and say, hey, look, we already brought you the identities, right? And this also doesn't require the consumers to go and do this high friction, like enrollment sign up thing, right? So they can essentially just, without having to change their behaviors at all, uh, just be able to achieve that quick checkout experience, right? So I think that was another thing that really stood out to us in terms of how do you solve this kind of a two-sided marketplace chicken and the egg problem. They went a different way, and that was really, I think, different and to us at the time. So that's why we continue to feel really excited about Skipify.
Mm, I wonder, so like since you mentioned about like the consumer have like a very high friction of like enrollment, um, what are, I guess, like how do you feel like, so obviously I think like, I guess, how do you get the consumer to like actually trust the platform at the beginning, since it's like unrecognizable front at the beginning? Because I feel like the most challenge for any like consumer facing app, it's like especially touching money, like, unless it's like a Stripe or something that's already kind of like, or
Yeah.
like PayPal, that's like something that's very out there, Klarna, but like I guess like it's hard for the consumer to like willingly to interact. So like I guess like how, what does a kind of like go to market strategy they have leveraged to like got these like top brands like Discover, American Express, and Samsung to like adopt in the first place?
Yeah, well, you have to kind of design from the very get go with security and safety in mind, right?
Mhm.
With compliance in mind. So early on, addressing these issues as you talk to the Discover, the Visas, the Amex, the JPMs of the world, the PayPal's of the world,
Mhm.
you better be ready to
Mhm.
answer those questions, right? Because in the room they're going to bring their CISO or somebody from the CISO's org, right, to
Mhm.
ask you these questions, right? You're going to get grilled, right? Because
Mhm.
the consumer information, the customers, that's kind of the secret sauce, right? That's
Mhm.
their treasure, right? So yeah, it's not easy, right? It's really really difficult, right, to work with large financial institutions because they care so much about safety and security, right? So you better, you know, be ready. So I think that's really there's no really kind of silver bullet or secret sort of path to be able to achieve that level of trust,
Mhm.
except actually build good security, build your product from day one to be safe, to be secure, to be reliable.
I wonder, so like for a startup to achieve that, like would it be like, what does it kind of like look like? Would it be like you hire someone from a very good like security company? Ironically, apparently there's a company called Very Good Security, but like
Yeah.
so how do you kind of like make sure the security is on par with all these like big companies like requirements? And like, do you have to like hire someone who come from like a security background that's kind of worked in the industry for 5 years, or like, I mean 50 years technically? Or like how do you think about like how do you evaluate if they actually meet the benchmark? And then is there any since like AI is like in the forefront of like, deepfake and everything else, like um if someone coming from like a really like traditional security background, like how do you make sure that they can like keep up with the newest like AI trends? So I see like two school of like the security companies exist. Like one part is like, the Israel like 8200, but also these other people are coming from, I don't know, work at a Coinbase or something for like 2 years, recent grads. Like, are they just like have no chance to compete with these kind of like security experts within the industry for like a lot of years? Or how do you kind of like judge if the security technology is good enough? And if you're talking to like a technical diligence partner, whether it's at PayPal or somewhere else, like how do you identify who is like a good judge of this kind of stuff?
Mhm. I would say, well, it's many questions kind of rolled into
I'm
one. But
sorry. Yeah.
yeah,
I
it's
feel like
okay.
it's just like a diligence processing
Yeah, yeah,
question.
yeah. And I would say, look, if you're building like a cyber security company, right? If the
Mhm.
product you're delivering is cybersecurity, then yeah, like you have to have experts, right? It doesn't mean you have to come from, Israeli cyber
Yeah.
defense unit. You can come from anywhere in the world, right? But you probably should be an expert in the area. Now, if you're building, say, a fintech, payment technology product, or say an insurtech product,
Mhm.
then it still should be top of mind, right? But you should bring other folks, right? Your team should be absolutely multidisciplinary, meaning that you should know payment, but you should also know, okay, like in order to be able to work with large banks, here are the security questions I need to ask, right? Here are the areas that I need to sort of beef up, right? So here are the folks I need to go hire. So it doesn't mean that you have to be a cybersecurity expert if you're looking to build something within financial services, right? It just means that you have to hire, right, the right folks, or co-found, have a co-founder who kind of knows the area, right? But I don't think it's a super difficult thing, right? But domain knowledge, vertical specific knowledge is absolutely important, right? Otherwise, you don't even know kind of the right questions to ask. Now,
Mhm.
from a diligence perspective, I think we'll test the product, right? And we'll talk to the customers, if they have any, right? We'll ask about, hey, have you had any security breaches, right? How has the platform held up, right? When you stress test it, right? When it's in production, like has it giving you any issues? So
Mhm.
these are the questions that we'll ask, right? The best thing to kind of test whether it works is to put it to work, right? Like
Mhm.
release it in the wild and see how it works.
Mhm.
And we obviously have in-house experts that we leverage, right? We have a massive infosec team that we
Mhm.
can sort of tap into, who have been really great partners for PayPal Ventures, that help us evaluate these companies from an infosec perspective. So yeah, that hopefully that covers all the questions.
For sure. I want to be mindful of the time. Maybe I do like one real question and a 30-second fire round.
Yeah.
Okay, so one real question is like about the compliance side of things. So like you have invested in a company called Mind, which is like a data privacy and compliance SaaS platform. And there is another company, formerly Lyca, but now it's called Tropass, which is like a compliance as a service platform. In the compliance, and like what are some like newest like I guess like AI trends that's kind of like coming up? And maybe if you could like touch up on like these two companies, or like what is like some common themes there, and why do you guys like kind of invest in these companies?
Yeah, I would say, they're both kind of in the broader category of compliance,
Mhm,
or data security, but they do very different things, right? Mine does more of a data privacy, data mapping, kind of knowing where your data is sitting, and are you managing your data correctly?
mhm,
And where ThoroughPass, formerly known as Leica, they're more in the SOC 2 compliance automation, HIPAA compliance, sort of ISO compliance automation side of things. So it's more of a compliance certification platform, right? Uh, the broader themes, or I would say the common themes, continue to be they're more uh, tools that are coming to market, right? They're more, whether it's open source, whether it doesn't have to be just within AI, right?
mhm,
There, these vendors that are coming to market. There are these new tools that teams are evaluating.
mhm,
How do you make sure whatever you're adopting isn't impacting negatively your security posture, right? Your data privacy posture. So these, like I said at the beginning of the call, right? These are the perpetual themes, right? So it doesn't
mhm,
matter whatever trends are happening, right? Making sure you
mhm,
know where your data is, you know who's
mhm,
able to access it,
mhm,
and how it's being used. Those are the things that will always hold true
mhm,
if you're a security leader, or really, yeah, if you're a company leader,
mhm,
right? So those are the things that are absolutely are important now, particularly within AI. Though I would say, there are companies that are doing, say, model security testing, right?
mhm,
Uh, you know, sort of building things that help prevent model extraction, right? Leaching, right? Uh, all kinds of attacks, right? Doing red teaming. So these are kind of the new things that are, I would say, on the very bleeding edge,
mhm,
that security companies are building for. Now,
mhm,
ThoroughPass will continue to help you evaluate your security posture, right? If you're adopting new technologies, right? So we're kind of sitting, we're almost kind of selling a shovel in this case, right?
mhm.
Because as more innovations happen, as new trends emerge, right, that just means you have to keep up from a compliance perspective. So that really benefits ThoroughPass.
Mm, for sure. Okay, so I want to be mindful of the time, and then why don't we quickly end with like a 1 minute fire run? Okay, what's your favorite book?
What's my favorite book? Wow, that's a tough one. I will tell you what I'm reading now.
Mm,
It's a book about it's a book called the Storm Before the Calm.
mhm,
It's an interesting book that's about the changing geopolitical landscape, and in some ways it's almost predicting very accurately what's been happening in the broader, I would say, geopolitical landscape, both domestically and also internationally, right? And it at the end of the day, there's, the book is trying to say, despite all these chaos, right,
mhm,
all these changes that are happening all around us, there's reason to be extremely optimistic, extremely hopeful about the future of America. And I think
mm,
that's an amazing book to read, particularly as you're, every day we tend to read the news and something negative's happening, right? You
mhm,
read
for
about,
sure.
whether it's regional conflicts or political scandals and things of that sort, right? So it's
Mhm,
important to maintain hope and optimism about the future,
mhm,
maintain really a sense of open mindedness about the changes, right? And the
mhm,
one thing that I think the humankind has been really good at is adapting to new things,
for
right? So
sure.
I really recommend it. I'm absolutely enjoying the book.
Who would you invite to your dinner party?
Wow. That's a tough one. So many, but some I would say, shoot. Um, I don't know. I would probably say, well, including people who have passed.
Sure, it's your party.
It's my party. Okay, I'll probably invite Lee Kuan Yew. I think he's just once in a generation type of political leader that has done an absolute just amazing job transforming a tiny little fishing village into one of the economic powerhouses in the world, and his legacy continues to influence world leaders across leaders across the world. So I think he just seemed like a very wise person that I think I would love to get his perspective on a lot of things in life.
Who made the biggest impact in your career?
Biggest impact in my career. I would say, let me see. Probably, I would say it's the folks that I've worked with at Revolution. It's really, I think that I cut my teeth doing investments there. It's all the folks, right? And I won't name specific. Well, I'll name them because why not embarrass them, right? Steve Case, Ted Leonsis, Don Davis, Evan Morgan, Sampak, and these are amazing folks who I continue to stay very close to, who continue to influence me. But I would say, some of these folks have become just wildly successful, right, through their career, and they continue to be humble, continue to be open-minded, and continue to want to learn and be curious, and maintain sort of that level-headedness where you talk to them, they're very intellectually curious, right? They want to learn from you. They listen when you speak, right? Even though I'm just this kind of back then I was this young kid fresh out of banking, really didn't know much, didn't have much to offer, but every time I spoke, they listened, and they will offer feedback. They helped genuinely care that I grew intellectually, right? So they had a huge impact, right? And to also folks that, like I mentioned, like Evan, he had a huge impact. I mean, he was not that much older than me, but the work ethic that he had shown as a young investor, and also as a mentor, if I could call him that, to mentor to me, really influence how I want to spend my time, and how I want to focus my energy, right? Because just the drive and the work ethics that he demonstrated, it continued to inspire me today. Yeah.
Where can we find you outside work?
Probably hang out with my kids. I've got 3 little ones, and they keep me quite busy. So I like to hang out with them outside of work, and we like to go on hikes. We like to go, hang out in the park. Just normal dad stuff.
Normal
Yeah.
that stuff.
Yeah,
Love.
we're at Taekwondo classes for my oldest, right? Those type of things, right?
Well, love that. Well, Alan, thank you so much for coming on the show today. It was such a fun conversation about all things PayPal Ventures, as well as like all the investing trends in AI.
Great. Yeah. Thanks for having me. Really enjoyed our convo.
Okay, let me quickly end stream.